Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Neelambujashyamalakoomalangam Sita Samaropitavamabhagam Parno Mahasayakacharuchapam Namami Ramam Raghuvamshanatham Atulita Baladhamam Hemashailadhadeham Danujavana Krishanum Jnaninamakgraganyam Sakala Nidhanam Vanaranamadhisham Raghupati Priya Bhaktam Vatajatam Namami. In the Aranyakanda of Ramcharitmanas, we have seen this beautiful portion of Navadha Bhakti, where Bhagavan meets with Shabriji, who has been waiting for him for such a long time, following her guru's instructions and simply doing this Nama Japa of Bhagavan's name. Having no idea whose name she's taking, having no idea what the result is of this sadhana, she simply just does it. And the result of that, as we've seen, is Bhagavan himself comes to Shabriji's home, which is seen as an ashrama because of all the sadhana that she's done. And she offers puja and she praises him. And after saying that, Bhagavan, I am uneducated, I am living in this forest. What do I know? How can I even praise you? I am the lowest of the low. Bhagavan says, listen, oh beautiful lady, I accept only one relationship. You don't need to be of a particular lineage or background to be close to me. You don't need to have any particular wealth or strength or connections or intelligence or even any particular qualities. The only thing that I accept is bhakti. And as though in praise of Shabriji, Bhagavan then described these 9 forms of devotion, starting from satsang and through to the last, in which he says that to be straightforward with everyone, to have faith in me, and to not experience too much elation or grief from the world, that last final form, he says out of all of these, if somebody has even one, in other words, if somebody even is just practicing satsang in their life, and at the moment there is nothing else that they're doing, they are just keeping regular satsang, Bhagavan says that person becomes so dear to me. It doesn't have to be even be a person. He says, Nari Purusha Sacharachara Koi. A living being, even an inanimate object. You might wonder how even an inanimate object can practice devotion and be beloved by Bhagavan. But this is also seen, right? In Balkand, you have the story of Ahalya. Ahalya, who was existing at that time in a very inert sort of way, as though like a stone. she had not done anything. She was not capable in that state of doing any type of sadhana. But Bhagavan himself came and touching his feet to that stone, she is then redeemed. So it really doesn't matter. What Bhagavan is pointing out is the only thing that counts is what is our bhava? What is our feeling in our mind towards God? And he says to Shabriji that you have all these 9 forms of devotion. In other words, how dear you must be to me. If Bhagavan loves someone who has only 1 form and Shabriji has all 9, then she is extremely beloved to Bhagavan. And he says, you know, you're saying that you're a very simple woman and you're just living in the forest and you're not being able to do anything. Those yogis who are constantly doing some sadhana and going through a lot of austerity, doing very sort of subtle practices, that which is so difficult for them to attain, that is what you have attained by meeting me. To kahu aaju sulabha bhai soi. That has actually become easy for you. That you have, in other words, you have surpassed everyone. Because your devotion is there and your devotion is so pure. In the Rama Gita, you know, when Bhagavan talks to Lakshmanji about devotion, he says that when somebody practices any of the sadhanas that give rise to devotion, the result of all of this is they start to love me more and more, Bhagavan says. Okay? So the result of sadhana is we love Bhagavan because we're creating a connection with him. We're creating some sambandha. But here what he says is, the result of devotion is that Bhagavan loves that devotee. That love is not one-sided, right? It's not like an unfulfilled or unfulfilling relationship where you are only giving and giving and you're not receiving anything in return. This is one of the most common things that, especially when we're starting out and we're trying to build a connection with God, with other people, when you talk to them or you interact with them, it's very easy to see how what you give is reciprocated, right? Because you see a tangible response. With Bhagavan, this question often comes that I'm doing my puja and japa, etc. I'm doing these sadhanas, whether it's satsang or listening to katha. But how do I know that Bhagavan is reciprocating? How do I know that I'm receiving something back from him? So here, Bhagavan himself is saying that that person who practices all of this becomes extremely dear to me. And as we do that sadhana, as our mind becomes more and more used to thinking of subtle things, we do start to notice, right? You see in your life these signs of God's love for you. One of them being satsang. The fact that we have satsang is a sign of Bhagavan's grace. The presence of a guru in our life is God's love for us. So that doubt also is displaced, right? That how do I know if God is, how do I know if God loves me back? And Tulasida will say just now that the most important thing actually is Shraddha. So he says, that which is difficult for yogis, you have attained. And now something very important and something very unique about this meeting with Shabriji. Bhagavan says, Mama darasana phala parama anupa. The result of having my darshan is something which can't be compared to anything in this world. there is no scale of comparison, right? As with all our other experiences. You go, for example, to eat at a restaurant, right? So you eat some whatever type of food they have there. And always in the mind, there is some, oh, the last time we went here, it was not this good, actually. Or I went to this other place and had the same type of food. That was much better. There's always a scale of comparison, whether with objects or people. He says, the result of my darshan is incomparable. You can't measure it against anything in this world. Why? What is that result? He says, Jiva Pava Nija Sahaja Sarupa. The result is that person who sees me attains their own supreme nature. In other words, the result of Bhagavan's darshan is that we recognize our oneness with him, that we forget our individuality and we see ourselves as nothing but him. And he is our own true nature. That is the result of darshan. And this you don't see anywhere, right? Up till now, all the munis, etc., who have met Bhagavan, most recently we saw with Jatayuji, right? When Bhagavan met Jatayu, he offered Jatayuji long life. Jatayuji said, no, now I've seen you, what will I live for? So Bhagavan says, okay, I give you mukti. But he says to Jatayuji, now where you are going, you will meet my father. In other words, you are going to some higher world where you'll meet Dasharath Maharaj. And he gives him some message. For the other sages, etc., also similar things were said. Here, there is no conferring of a boon from Bhagavan's part, on Bhagavan's part. Shabriji is also not asking for anything because the result here is oneness, right? The result is not she's being given this abode in a higher world. The result is moksha. And when that is gained, there is nothing to ask and there is nothing to give. There is no transaction that is required between the devotee and Bhagavan. He says, this is the result of having my darshan. Now, this discussion concludes, and very suddenly Bhagavan changes gears. For this particular portion, when he meets Shabriji, he speaks to her as Ishwara. And now suddenly he becomes Rama again. And he says, Janaka Suta Kai Sudhi Bhamini. That, oh beautiful lady, I'm looking for Janaka Suta. I'm looking for Sita ji. Janahi Kahu Kari Baragamini. Do you know anything about her? Do you know anything about where she might have gone or where I can find her? Now he's back to playing his role. Shabriji says, go to the Pampa lake. Pampa Sarahi Jahu Raghurai Taha Hoihi Sugriva Mitai. There you will become the friend of Sugriva. Now she doesn't say how she knows this, right? How does Shabriji has never left that forest. She has never met Sugriva. She doesn't know where Sita ji has gone. But she is telling Bhagavan exactly what he needs to do. Go to the Pampa Lake, meet Sugriva, and from there the journey will continue. So we don't know how she knows, but see what she says to Bhagavan. So sabakahi deva raghuvira janatahu puchahu mati dhira. She says, Bhagavan, you know everything, and still you're asking me. You are, as Ishvara, you know everything. why are you asking me? This is something that we see all the time, especially in this Ramcharitmanas, that Bhagavan is always bringing glory to his devotees. He is always honoring them and respecting them. So starting with Valmiki ji, when he leaves Ayodhya, and he says to Valmiki ji, where should I stay? Where should I go from here? Valmiki ji says, you know everything, why are you asking me? But it gives him an opportunity to say, go to Chitrakuta. Okay? Before that, there is this really beautiful dialogue about 14 places where Bhagavan resides with devotees, etc. So Bhagavan always is doing this. He's always bringing great glory to his devotees. So he says, where should I go? She says, go here. And now bara bara prabhu pada sirinai prema sahita sabha katha sunai. She again and again is bowing her head at Bhagavan's feet. And she tells her whole story. Because up until now, we've seen the story, but she hasn't narrated anything to Bhagavan. So what does she tell him? So now in this chandas, what is said? Kahi katha sakala biloki harimukha hridaya pada pankajadhare. She tells the whole story of how she met Matanga Rishi, what Matanga Rishi told her to do, etc. And after having done this, she just remains there just looking at Bhagavan, looking at his lotus feet, just filling her eyes. Tajijuga pavaka deva deha haripada leena bhai jaha nahi phire. This is also a very special thing. This woman who has been living in the forest, who has been rejected by so many people in her life because of the sort of family she's been born into, etc. She gives up her body in yoga agni. She produces fire through her powers of yoga sadhana, and her body is burnt, and she attains that pada, from which there is no return. In other words, she attains complete oneness with Bhagavan. Now Tulasidas ji says, Nara bibhita karma adharma bahumata suka prata sabatyaga. In our life, we are constantly acting. We are performing so much karma. And so many different types of karma we are doing, right? Everybody is doing something different. And within one lifespan, how much action a person performs. But also what that person performs is along the way some adharma, right? Somewhere along the way, we will do something that is not right, that will give us some negative result. And along with that, we are constantly thinking and learning and forming convictions and developing new beliefs, gathering knowledge. Tulasidas ji says all of this is just soka prada. The result of all of it, any karma that you do, any adharma, that is very clear. But even any karma that you do, the result will be sorrow. The result of all learning, apart from this self-knowledge, all other learning will end in sorrow only. Because all karma, all adharma, all knowledge that we gather, all of it is just maintaining our ego, right? Unless the purpose of that karma is as a sadhana, unless it's being performed as karma yoga, and unless the purpose of that knowledge is to know my oneness with Bhagavan, all karma, all knowledge is maintaining our ego. And therefore, the result of all of it will be sorrow. We will get some glimpse of joy in between, right? Some taste just to keep us going in life. But as long as this duality is maintained, as long as we don't know our oneness with Bhagavan, he says everything is just going to give grief. And therefore, sabatyagahu, give all of it up. And what should then if we give everything up, what should we do? He says, visvasa kari. Have faith and Ramapada anuragahu. Just develop devotion to the feet of the Lord. That's all you need to do. In the Bhagavad Gita also, Bhagavan says that everybody is just made up of the faith that they hold, right? What determines our thoughts? What determines our actions? What determines the type of relationships that we make or break or maintain? What determines the kind of things that we pursue in life? Everything is dependent upon the type of faith that we have. What do we have faith in? And if we can have faith in Bhagavan, then that is the absolute best thing for us to do. Because with that faith in Bhagavan, we can develop devotion. And the result of devotion, as we've seen, is unsurpassed. There is nothing like it. So, have devotion, he says. Tulasidas says Bhagavan has given moksha to someone like Shabariji. What sort of mind will turn away from that type of God? He's such a compassionate Lord, and my mind is looking out into the world and looking for joy elsewhere. This is, don't forget Bhagavan. Now, Rama and Bhagavan and Lakshmanji are continuing on their search. So now we are reading after doha 36. Okay. Yeah, after doha 36. Chale Rama tyagapan so atulita bala narake harido Birahi iva prabhu karata bishada kahata katha aneka samvada Lakshmana dekhu bipin kai sobha dekhat kehi kar man nahi chobha Nari sahita sab khag mriga branda manahu mori karat hahi ninda हम ही देखी मृग निकर पराही मृगी कहि तुम कह भय नाही तुम आनंद करहु मृग जाए कंचन मृग खोजन ए आए संग लाई करिनी करि लेहि मानहु मोहि सिखावनु देहि शास्त्र सुचिंतित पुनि पुनि देखिय भूप सुसेवित बस नहीं लेखिय राखिय नारी जदपि उर माही जुबती शास्त्र नृपति बस नाही देखहु तात बसंत सुहावा प्रियाहीन मोहि भय उपजावा बिरह बिकल बलहीन मोहि जाने सि निपट अकेल सहित विपिन मधुकर खग मदन कीन्ह बग मेल देखी गया भ्राता सहित तासु दूत सुनि बात डेरा कीन्हे मन हुतब कटकु हटकी मन जात. So now they're proceeding further into the forest. And how do they look? So he says, Atulita bala narake harido, of these two brothers who are extremely strong, immeasurable strength. And how do they look? Like two lions. Means they're walking so gracefully. You know, when you see animals in their natural habitat, just moving around, they have this natural beauty and grace. And when you look at them, you just feel like watching them for as long as you can. Bhagavan is walking and Lakshmanji, they're both walking like lions. And Bhagavan, again, is acting like someone who is deeply affected by this separation from Sitaji. Birahi iva prabhu karata vishada. He is not experiencing grief, but he is displaying grief for the purpose that we saw, right? And later also he'll say, this is all just to teach people about the dangers of attachment. What happens when you get too attached and you lose someone? Then like Bhagavan, you go around talking to inanimate objects and asking the trees and the creepers, have you seen my beloved? So Bhagavan is displaying all this grief. But at the same time, kahata katha aneka sambada. He is talking to Lakshmana and he is telling lots of stories. And this you see constantly, right? When they are together and they're spending time and there isn't a particular thing to do at that time, they always fill it with some satsang. Either Lakshmanji will ask a question or Bhagavan will just be telling some stories and teaching him something. So they're walking through the forest and Lakshmana, Bhagavan is telling Lakshman, Dekha bipina kai subha. See all the beauty of this forest. Dekhata kehi kara mana nahi choba. He says, who will not be moved by the beauty of this forest? Now also, right, if you go, especially for people who live in the city, you go to some forest and you just take a quiet moment there. It's so beautiful. And the type of forest that we see are not like this untouched forest, right? The type of forest we see are where hundreds of other people also go. And paths are clearly there and they've been manicured a little bit. But there is such beauty in nature, even just to watch how sunlight touches the trees and the leaves and how it filters down to the ground. Such beauty is there in nature. Bhagavan says, who will not be moved by the size of this forest? But here again, Bhagavan is displaying this grief. Nari Sahita Sabha Khaga Mriga Branda. All these birds and animals, everybody is together with their Nari, means all the male animals are together with their female counterparts. And Manahu Mori Karata Hahi Ninda, as though they are criticizing me. We all have our partners. How have you come here without yours? Our wives, etc., all here. Hamahi dekhi mriga nikara parahi. Seeing me, all the deer are running away. But the female deer are laughing at them and saying, why are you scared? You can roam about this forest as you want. This man who you're seeing, he has come looking for some golden deer. He's not looking for you. You do what you want. As though these female deers are laughing at him, Bhagavan is saying. Not only the deer, but also the elephants. He says, Sangalai karini karilehi. All the elephants are bringing their mates with them. Manahu mohi sikhavanudeki, as though teaching me a lesson. That you should not leave your partner anywhere and go. You always make sure that they are safe. Now, one very important thing is said here. Shastra suchintita puni puni dekhi. Even if you have studied something, some shastra, you can't take that knowledge that you have gained for granted. You have to keep going back to it. You have to look at it again and again and again. Once is not enough. And this is true of both, right? Whether it's secular knowledge or spiritual knowledge, you always need some revision. You always need to keep yourself up to date, right? Even in the working world, people are always doing this, what is that? CPD, right? Continued personal development. And you always have to update your skills and refresh your skills. And in this spiritual study especially, we can't take for granted that, oh yeah, I read Bhagavad Gita once. Once is enough. Once is not enough. This is why Pujya Gurudev, in so many different ways, has given us this beautiful tradition, right? Whether you hear through anecdotes of people who telling Gurudev that, I've studied, and always he said, well, how much of it have you absorbed? But even this tradition of, when we study a text, when we reach the end of that text, what is the last thing we do is we read the first verse again, right? That tradition is to remind us of this. You can't just study something once and think, yeah, I know. It has to be seen repeatedly, again and again. But something different Bhagavan is saying here as well. Just like you can't feel that you have mastered any scripture by studying it once, he says, even if you serve someone for a long time, like a king, don't think that by serving that person, they will come under your control. You think often, not explicitly, but implicitly this thought is there, right? That I have served one person or many people. Now they should, I'm owed something by them, right? Now they owe me for the service that I've done. There's no such thing. Don't think that just by serving someone, that person comes under your vasha, your control. Now he says, Rakhya nari jadapi uramahi jubati shastra nripati basanahi. That same with whether woman or man, whoever it is, just because that person loves you, that person has great affection for you, even if you love them a lot, it doesn't mean that that person is always going to be with you. It doesn't mean that that person is always going to listen to what you say. And this is a lesson actually nobody needs stating explicitly, because we all know that as much as you love someone, you can't make anybody do anything. Even though, because of the spring season, this forest is so beautiful. For me, because Sitaji is not here, it's bringing fear into my mind. Because everything that I see is reminding me that she is not here. There is one thing that is pointed out here. Bhagavan was talking about the deer and the elephants. And this whole thing has come because Bhagavan, at the behest of Sitaji, ran after this golden deer. That golden deer, as we saw earlier, it looks very nice, but it is not at all, in the slightest, what it appears to be. That golden deer was really just Marich, right, in disguise. what is being said here is that when we pursue something in which there is, really speaking, no substance, but also really no real joy available from that object or from that experience or situation, whatever it might be, what happens is, number one, we lose what we already have. And number two, we gain nothing in the process of that pursuit. Okay? Just like running after that golden deer, what has happened is, number one, Sitaji is lost. Or from Sitaji's perspective, Bhagavan is lost, because really speaking, he ran after it only for her. So one, what we already have is lost. And second, nothing new is gained. Nothing meaningful or fulfilling is gained in that process. In fact, there is just loss. So for us also, right, as seekers, the choice that we make generally in this world is, if we simplify it down to the sort of real bare bones of the choices that we make, we are either choosing impermanent happiness or we are choosing permanent happiness. If we choose the world, if we choose to pursue this world and make something of this world as the goal and purpose of our life, we are choosing to pursue impermanent happiness. And if we make God as the goal and purpose of our life, we are choosing to pursue permanent happiness. That golden deer is representative of, whether you say Maya or this world, it is representative of that impermanent happiness, which at the time looks so appealing. And it looks like, in that moment, it appears to us as though, after I get this, everything will be fine. Everything will be good. And in the very next moment, whether after we attained it or after it's lost, it becomes so clear that actually this is not at all what I was looking for. I was looking for the opposite of what I got. I was looking for joy. And instead what I got was sorrow. I was deceived. So Bhagavan is also showing us this, right? That if we make this choice, if we don't choose him, and if we prioritize the world over Bhagavan, what is the result of that, right? What is the result of making that choice? He is literally demonstrating it by showing all this grief. And this is just for us to learn, right? It's not that Bhagavan has forgotten who he is. He's really experiencing sorrow. It's just as a teaching for us all about the nature of attachment and how it always transforms into sorrow. Now Bhagavan is saying what's happened is that this Kamadev has seen me all alone in the forest, and I'm suffering because of this separation. He has, as though, created all of this beauty just to give me some extra sting, just to make all of this worse. But what has happened is that he has seen that I'm together with you, Lakshman, and therefore he has not come to me, but he has though trapped me. I've become entrapped in this beautiful forest. Now, because this is Aranyakanda, right? This is all about the forest. There is now a description given by Bhagavan himself about how this forest appears. So he describes the trees and the creepers and the flowers, and animals, birds, everything. And then there is a meeting with Naradji. Naradji, who at the beginning was deluded by Bhagwan's Maya, cursed Bhagwan that you will also lose your wife one day and you will have to recover her with the help of monkeys. Bhagwan meets that Naradji, and there is some dialogue, there is some teaching. So all of that we will see next time. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.